KNON 89.3 FM in Dallas and Fort Worth, the voice of the people.
Business owners, tell KNON's listeners about your business. You can put your business or event on KNON. KNON currently has space available to run announcements for you. Tell KNON's listeners about your goods, services, nightclub, concert, or event. Help keep the voice of the people on the air while putting your information on the air. KNON's been named the #1 radio station in Dallas by both the Dallas Observer and D Magazine. Put your business with Dallas's #1 station. Call now for more information at 214-828-9500, extension 227, or extension 233. For more information, go to KNON.org and click on the Run Spots on KNON page. It's a great way for your business to support community radio while letting more people know about you.
Good morning. It's the Workers Beat. Call us at 972-647-1893. Good morning, Bonnie.
Good morning. How are you this morning, Gene?
Glad to be here, I'll tell you that.
Me too.
On Sunday, tomorrow, there's an organizing meeting for the Move On Council. This is for leadership of the Move On. I don't know where or when, but Move On Council members, you've got a meeting tomorrow. Congress is considering the possibility of extending benefits to the 1.3 million who got their Christmas present was a kick in the face, no unemployment benefits. So the Congress is considering an extension, and the AFL-CIO is asking people to call Congress and do what you can to try to get congressmen to vote to extend unemployment benefits. The economists are all up in arms about it. They're saying you really have to extend those unemployment benefits. It's going to hit the economy pretty hard if they don't.
Yeah.
You'll see those people, when they get their money, they spend every cent of it, and that really helps the economy. 972-647-1893. Something else going on. January the 8th at 7 o'clock will be the monthly Job of Justice meeting. We're going to have Kenneth Williams, who's been on this program. You know him because he has this great dramatic voice and a tremendous presence. And he is going to present one of Dr. Martin Luther King's speeches to labor. A lot of people know about his speeches to other preachers or to people on the street, you know, but very few people know that Dr. King actually spoke to the AFL-CIO, spoke to the UAW. He went around to different labor conventions and spoke to them about the importance of labor and civil rights working together. So Kenneth Williams will present that at the Jobs with Justice meeting on Wednesday, 7 o'clock, 1408 North Washington. That's Bonnie's Union Hall.
It is my Union Hall.
CWA 6215. Center of Progressive Event.
That's right. That's exactly right.
Largely thanks to Bonnie.
Well, and you know, our legislative director and our new leader for the AFL-CIO, Dallas CLC, we've really seen a huge change in labor's presence in just the last
Mark York,
few months.
the new principal officer of the AFL-CIO, has invited Job of Justice to come in there and use CWA 6215. And that's at 1408 North Washington. It's just barely in East Dallas, just right outside of downtown. You get there on Ross Street or Live Oak. And then when you get to Washington, you go between Ross Street and Live Oak.
We're right down the street from the DISD Administration Building, which is on the corner of Washington and Ross.
Okay. And also on January 22nd, there's going to be a City Hall meeting, and people are supposed to speak up for the homeless on City Hall Day. And if you want to be a speaker on this thing for the City Hall, you call the city secretary at 214-670-3738. The United Auto Workers, this is also on January 22nd.
Wow.
United Auto Workers members are being summoned to UAW Local 276, which is usually thought of as being in Arlington. It's actually in Grand Prairie. Local 276 at 4 o'clock, and that's at 2505 W.E. Roberts Street. Used to be Shepherd Street. 2505 W.E. Roberts Street in Grand Prairie at 4 o'clock. That's for UAW members. And if UAW members need any more information, they can call Romeo Munoz at 972-264-2431. Romeo Munoz is my president. I'm very, very proud of him, and I'm very, very proud of my local UAW 848. In the middle of all of our problems, and we're having big ones, they are still focusing on the importance of the politics in 2014. If you're interested in politics in 2014 and you want to comment, give us a call at 972-647-1893. We do have a guest,
We do.
the Youth Director, the Young Workers Council, the FFLCO.
Yay.
Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning.
And we're very glad to have Cooper Caraway with us. Cooper, what about this TPP business, the trade, what is it called?
Trans-Pacific Partnership.
Yeah. This thing is coming up. The fast track is coming up, and AFL-CIO is asking us to make calls. The CWA has said that there's a day of action on the 22nd. That's not even a Saturday, I don't think. So what are we going to do, and what can be done? What is fast track? What does it all mean? Can you tell us?
Yeah, I can. It's well, first of all, I think the AFL-CIO's response to the Trans-Pacific Partnership trade talks is right on. I think they're spot on in throwing as many resources and as much energy as we can to resist this trade agreement, because this is really one of the most detrimental pieces of legislation to ever come across the working class in this country. This is really a NAFTA on steroids, and everyone can pretty much agree that NAFTA hurt the working class not only here but internationally. And the Trans-Pacific Partnership Agreement would do the same thing, except rather than the victims being the United States workers and the workers of South and Central America, the victims would be more United States workers and the workers of the Pacific Islands.
I want to try to get Daryl Sullivan on the program sometime, because he's a Teamster activist, and he's going to try to get something together, I hope, for the 22nd. I don't know if it's going to be a march or a press conference or what, but we want to participate locally in the fight for fair trade and against what they call free trade. They call it free trade agreement. I call it so-called free, so-called trade, so-called agreement.
Yeah.
Because it's none of those things.
None of the above.
What it is a free hand for corporations.
Yeah.
The corporations right now are involved in the negotiations.
Secret negotiations.
Yeah, they have the government officials are there, but so are hundreds of corporate lobbyists. They know all about the Trans-Pacific Partnership. We know almost nothing about it.
That's right.
There's been a little bit leaked, but not very much. We know almost nothing about it. We know the corporations are setting this whole thing up. They will spring it on Congress, and this is where fast track comes in. Fast track means it has to go right through Congress. They'll have a limited amount of time, something like 12 hours or maybe 24 hours, but, a very, very short period of time.
No discussion.
No, they can have discussion, but they can't have amendments. They cannot change it at all.
Yeah. It's
They can't say, well, we like this part about it, but we don't like that part about it. Like all other legislation goes into Congress, and they debate it, and they change it, they amend it, they take some things out, they put some things in, and then we end up with some kind of compromise. This thing, they cannot change it at all. Then they have to vote it up or down. Yep. And they won't even introduce it until they've already got everybody lined up.
That's
they
right.
are, the corporations will go, the lobbyists will go around to the politicians, and basically the politicians take orders from the corporations. So when the corporations get there, the lobbyists will have already told them how to vote, and that will be it as far as they're concerned. So they'll have 12 hours or so, and then they'll have to vote it up or down. It'll almost certainly pass. Because they won't even introduce it until they already know it's going to pass. And so what do the American people get out of this? Well, we get a secret deal sprung on us that supersedes our own laws. Whatever laws we have protecting workers and protecting environment will just be put on the back burner, and their laws will prevail.
And that basically we are giving up sovereignty in this trade agreement. It's really bad stuff. It is really bad stuff.
It's the same thing that they did with NAFTA. What they ended up doing in NAFTA, one of the effects of NAFTA, was that they blew away local agriculture in Mexico. So thousands of millions of farmers were suddenly ruined in Mexico because they were getting grain from West Texas and corn from Iowa, and they couldn't compete, so they went out of business and migrated. And so then we had a big migration that was caused by the economic ruin that NAFTA brought. when they say something's good about it, listen carefully, because everything good about it is only good for corporations.
Right.
It's not good for
us.
workers.
Right.
It's good for corporations. And that's why they call it neoliberalism. Neoliberalism, it is liberal because it's liberal for the corporations. They get to do more liberal stuff for themselves. But
to make themselves richer.
Yeah, it has nothing to do to help us.
No.
Now, we had a pretty good size demonstration against the TPP, a couple of years ago in Addison. Who was involved in that, Cooper? Do you remember?
Yeah, the CWA was highly instrumental in that, and it was really a good example of how successful coalitions can be when they come together. I was involved in organizing the resistance to the TPP trade talks when they came to Addison. And really, it shows how when labor unions and progressive political organizations and activist organizations come together, they can have a real impressive demonstration and show of solidarity.
That was the best thing about it. You started off talking about labor unions, but actually, it wasn't just labor unions by any means.
No.
I'd say probably Bonnie's Local, Communication Workers of America, 6215 was probably the main union involved. And other unions, my own union, the auto workers were there.
Teamsters were there. We had Texas Organizing Project was there. Yeah, we had
community organizations. Move On.
It was Move On, right? Yeah.
And Move On has really carried the ball on this recently. Move On has probably done more on the Trans-Pacific Partnership than anybody else locally for some time. And Kenneth Williams was on this program about a month ago explaining that, what the kinds of things that they have been doing. I hope they take it up tomorrow at their council meeting.
Me too.
Because this 22nd thing is upon us, and they're going to vote on fast track. See, the way it works is they're going to vote on whether or not to allow this bill to go through on the fast track. And then if they vote that it will go through on the fast track, then we're in terrible trouble because it's almost impossible to stop it once they put it on the fast track. It's literally like a train that's already left the station, and somebody can't just get in front of it and push back.
Right.
It'll run right over you. So we're going to have to fight that.
We have a call-in day, I believe, on the 8th to call Congress.
Do you have a number?
Members of Congress. I bet I can find it.
I don't know that. I didn't know there was a number. Is it AFL-CIO or is it CWA?
I think it's AFL.
Somebody can call in and say 972-647-1893 is our number. If you have an opinion, if you want to talk about so-called free, so-called trade, so-called agreement, or something else that you'd like to talk about, please do. 972-647-1893. This station really likes it when you call. I have a Facebook. I have a URL for a site, a website. It's called stopthetpp.org. That's all one word. Stopthetpp.org. And but I don't have a phone number that's going to do anything about it. Now, the AFL-CIO put out a phone number on the other thing, which is trying to get the unemployment benefits. And I don't know if I have that number either. If somebody knows it, call us at 972-647-1893 and let us know. Oh, here's the number for emergency unemployment insurance. This is a free number. You can call Congress. And what they do is they'll ask you for your zip code, and then they'll connect you to whoever your congressperson is in that zip code. So you call this number, 877-318-0483. I'll say it again. 877-318-0483. And that's a free call. They'll connect you with either your congressman or your senator, whatever they want you to talk to, and you tell them that you want an extension of unemployment benefits for the sad suckers that are out there that are literally cut off from their ability to live in America, 1.3 million of them, that were cut off as their Christmas present by Congress.
Yep.
They passed a budget that didn't even talk about the terrible plight of the long-term unemployed. And the longer you're unemployed, the less chance you have of ever getting a job.
Yep.
That's one of the statistics that's come out of this particular recession. That's really, 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 really scary.
Yeah, it's very scary. You know, around the TPP, there's several things. On Monday, people are actually being encouraged to plea to Jon Stewart and Stephen Colbert
Really?
to stop the media blackout about the TPP.
Because the only way to get it talked about is on Comedy Central.
Isn't that sad? But you know that there's a very large percentage of young people that get their news from Jon Stewart and Stephen Colbert.
Is that a fact?
Yes. Yes.
Because nobody else will talk about it.
Exactly. I mean, I love the shows. I think they're great. I don't think about watching them for current events, but they do bring a lot of things out in a different perspective that actually does get you to thinking.
Well, we do it on KNON.
Yes, we do.
Don't
We
short
do.
us. So it's Colbert, what's the other one, Stewart, and Bonnie Mathias.
Yeah, there you go.
Bring you the facts.
Bring
Nobody
you the
else.
facts.
972-647-1893. We're going to take a break in a minute, but you can call even during the break, and KNON loves it when you do. Give us your opinion. Should the corporations be able to set up anything that they want in the Trans-Pacific Partnership? You know, that's a big lie, too. We ought to start calling it something else besides Trans-Pacific Partnership, because that's not what it is. The Trans-Pacific International Corporation ripoff.
That's good.
Look, call it that. The ripoff, the Trans-Pacific ripoff. 972-647-1893.
And stopthetpp.org is got some really good information.
But they didn't actually tell us what to do. They just said to do it on the 22nd of January.
Yeah.
I hope that's not too late. I know why they picked that date, because they're trying to stay away from the Martin Luther King stuff. Because Martin Luther King's birthday is the 15th.
Right.
Probably the events will be on the 18th. There'll probably be marches and demonstrations and everything. All the union people are being asked to go to San Antonio because the AFL-CIO is having a big meeting there celebrating the birthday of Martin Luther King, and they'll probably participate in the San Antonio March, which is sometimes the largest march in America.
Right.
It used to be Atlanta always had the largest march, but then sometimes it's San Antonio. We'll be back right after this break. Call us at 972-647-1893. Saturday morning, we didn't get to that part about Saturday morning.
No, we didn't. That's the best day of the week because
Shannon's on the line, been waiting and waiting. Thanks for calling KNON, Shannon. Good morning.
Oh, you're welcome. I'm a new listener to your show. I listened last weekend.
Oh, great.
My question is, do you come on every day or just on Saturdays?
Just on Saturdays from 9 to 10.
Saturdays from 9 to 10. Would you like us to be on every day?
Yes, it would be good.
Okay, and then we'd get 7 times as much salary as we're getting now, Bonnie.
Which would 7 times 0 is still 0.
It's still 0.
Just saying.
Okay. Well, Shannon, were you listening when we were talking about the world trade questions and stuff like that?
Yes, and I had a question about that.
Shoot.
And also about, I'm sure you have a website or something where I can learn more, keep up more, with more information that you're, I would like to kind of get involved in, last week you were talking about workers getting organized and
Right.
the Walmart initiative and different things, and I need to follow up with some reading or something to understand what you're doing and how I could,
Well, my own website is labordallas.org. That's all one word, labordallas.org. I haven't been tending to it lately because I got a virus and my computer is driving me crazy.
Okay.
I also do the website for the Texas AFL-CIO. You can Google, Dallas AFL-CIO. You can Google that. It's kind of a long one. It's tx.aflcio.org/DallasCLC. But just Google Dallas AFL-CIO and you'll get that one.
AFL-CIO, all right.
And if you send me an email at LaborDallas, go to labordallas.org and hit contact us, send me an email, and you'll start getting regular labor updates because I do one at least every Friday.
Yep.
And some in between.
Someday, if need be, yeah. Gene's really good about getting the word out to folks about what's going on.
Try to. And Shannon, come to the meeting on Wednesday. You live in Dallas?
Actually, I do not. I live in Arlington.
Oh, I see. Well, it's a drive for you then. You could come to the meeting at 7 o'clock Wednesday at 1408 North Washington. In Dallas, you'd be very, very welcome. And 7 o'clock Wednesday, 1408 North Washington. Right.
Okay. All right. My question to you as far as the TPP. I know that you said that the legislation has been introduced will be introduced fast track if they can get it introduced fast track to Congress. Mm-hmm. Who wrote the legislation, and where is that support for this? I know you said the support is coming from the corporations,
right.
But who
corporations write it?
The corporations wrote this.
Corporate lobbyists write this stuff in secret, and then they spring it on us with fast track. And this is not the first time. You know, we had NAFTA, we had CAFTA, we had one for, was it Bolivia, or what was it?
It was the FAA, the Free Trade Agreement of the Americas.
Yeah,
okay, yeah, and then we had one for Korea, and this particular one is supposed to take in the whole Pacific, except for Japan and China. Now, China, the government's really working hard to keep China out, but they want Japan in. And I know my union, the Auto Workers Union, is scared to death that Japan will get in. So that's a particular issue for them. But anyway, this is a big one. This is the biggest one of all, the Trans-Pacific so-called partnership. We renamed it just now, Trans-Pacific Ripoff.
It just seems, I mean, I know I'm being real naive, but it just seems disgusting that large lobby groups can just write laws for their interests and then stick it throw it in front of Congress' face and make them vote on it. Yeah. I mean, who's writing legislation for us, people, for our interests? Just labor unions?
Well,
that's a great question. Who writes our legislation?
I can tell you that.
Help us. Who helps us?
Why?
They're so big. They can just write whatever they want and stick it up there. I mean, it seems kind of unfair.
It is unfair.
Well, they bring a suitcase of money, Shannon. Yep, they say, here's some legislation, and then on the other hand, they say, here's a suitcase full of money. And that's pretty hard for the congressman to resist that.
Unfortunately.
You mean the congressmen, they accept legislation because why?
They get paid.
Yeah, well, the Supreme Court has fixed it so that they can just give them suitcase after suitcase full of money, and they do.
If I write a piece of legislation, no one's going to pick that up and take it up the hill, right?
Well, you got people like Bernie Sanders, from Vermont.
Mark Vesey. Mark Vesey's great. He's from Dallas.
That's true.
We do have people.
Yeah.
We have to make sure that people get out and vote for their own best interests and stop voting against their own best interests, and get people in Washington who aren't there for a paycheck and for a suitcase of money. Mm-hmm. And, right now, I got to tell you, every politician, and I really don't care what color they are, red, green, blue, whatever, it's all about the next election. And it is really getting on my last nerve. Let me tell you. You cannot govern like that. You can't. Because you're bowing to whoever's got the most money.
Yeah, you're right.
And it ain't us.
Shannon, you got anything else?
Well, I guess my last comment would be then, so I know Mark Vesey should be my my representative. He's, from Fort Worth, Arlington. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So I guess the best way would you tell people to kind of figure out whether their representatives and congressmen are aware of, do you think our local state congressmen are actually aware of this TPP legislation and how devastating it is? Or
Mark Vesey told an audience I was in just 2 months ago that he has already taken a stand. He is against the Trans-Pacific Partnership. And I also understand that Eddie Bernice Johnson is planning to vote against it.
That's correct.
So that's our two good ones. All the others, as far as I know, in North Texas will probably vote for it.
Yeah. That's
right. Really?
Yeah. Oh, Pete Sessions, John Cornyn, Ted Cruz, all the Jeb Hensarling, they're all behind the TPP.
Mm-hmm. Is this vote? Is it split along party lines? I know Mark Vesey might be a Democrat. I'm thinking, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, Mark and Eddie Bernice are our only Democrats here in North Texas. Okay. Shannon, hurry up because we've got some other callers waiting.
Wow. Okay. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you.
We appreciate your call. Thank you so much. We had a caller come in with a good name for the TPP, Trans-Pacific Payoff.
Oh, that's good.
Now, it's still TPP, so that's pretty good. Trans-Pacific Payoff. But it's not a payoff for us. It's a payoff for the corporations. And on line 3, Joe is on. Good morning,
Yeah.
Joe. Thanks for calling KNON.
Yeah, hello, and I just want to say this here. The quicker people understand the workers in America is nothing but they if you get her on a job, guess what they want you to do? Die. Hurry up and get out of the way. That's what they want.
Mm-hmm.
That's right.
You know, the insurance companies, I call them bloodsuckers, vampires.
Yeah.
I seen it the other day when I was at the.
Joe, now, I want you to quit beating around the bush and tell us what you really think.
That's what I'm thinking.
I'm just kidding.
Yeah, they
Bloodsuckers and vampires.
That's what the insurance companies is. They want you to. Everybody out there get up early in the morning, go to work, and get hurt on a job. They want you to die. Hurry up, and get out of the way. That's what it is.
I'm afraid you're right.
Yes, people. I went to work with my mama when I was 8 years old. She was a maid in my hometown of Gonzales. And I would go work, but I learned early that if you ain't got no real money in this society, you're nothing garbage. That's what you is.
So money walks and everybody else, money talks and everybody else walks.
Yeah, that's what it is. You don't understand?
Yeah,
You
I
don't
sure do.
understand. If you get hurt and get sick and everything, they want you to hurry up and die and get out of the way.
Yeah.
Yep.
Your phone's making this popping noise or something like that.
Maybe the NASA.
Okay.
That's something else I learned about. I learned about the NASA when I was a teenager.
Yeah.
I already knew the government spying on us when I was a teenager. I already knew about it.
They're ripping us off.
Yeah, I already knew about it. So, you talking good stuff, man.
All right.
you.
Thanks so much, Joe. Call us anytime, KNON, and you can call us too at 972-647-1893. Our guest is sitting here all this time, patiently waiting. Christy Medrano, say good morning.
Good morning.
Christy, you're involved in women's rights issues.
Yes, I'm the current president of the Feminist Majority Leadership Alliance at the University of North Texas. We are a student organization, and we are the resident feminist, pro-choice, nonpartisan organization on campus.
And women are interested in this, right?
Yes, we have a lot of interest these days.
Well, no, really, I was talking to my wife about this because, I marched for the ERA. I marched against Baki and a whole bunch of, I marched for affirmative action back in the old days, before any of y'all were born.
Hey, wait a minute, I was there. Wait.
There was, when dinosaurs and men walked
roamed
together.
the earth, that's right.
But I haven't seen it lately, The last big feminist action that I was on was had to do with the Mitsubishi Auto Company. We picketed a used car, a car dealership over Mitsubishi, and this was 5 years ago. So, is the women's movement alive and strong now, Christy?
Well, I would argue that there's a revitalization of the women's movement, especially over this past summer when Texas attempted to, and actually did, pass one of the most restrictive abortion pieces of legislation. And we saw up to 3,000 people storm the Capitol in favor of women's rights, in favor of reproductive justice. So I would argue that it's still going on, but the problem is that we haven't organized very well.
And is it taking a different form, or is it more young people?
Yeah, of course. I would argue that a lot of young women are getting more and more into feminism. The problem these days is that feminism it's been given a bad reputation.
Yeah.
Every time I table out with our organization, we get asked if we're lesbians, if we're man haters. And I'm like,
Really?
well, of course some of us are, but that's not our end goal.
Yeah. Well, some women are this way and some women are that way, but the idea is to get women together, I guess,
We're all
right?
women. That's just disgusting.
So women are coming together, but you're under a lot of pressure. Is that what you're saying?
There's certainly a lot of pressure. The thing is that there are so many different issues that we have to organize around that we haven't done a very good job of organizing at all because we haven't been very unified, unfortunately.
Kind of scattered.
Definitely,
I want to
very
get
scattered.
I want to get in a commercial for the Coalition of Labor Union Women because Coalition of Labor Union Women has a great potential to come together. I don't know what they've done lately, but they have one, and it's a statewide organization, and the state president lives in Arlington. So we should be able to get something going with the Coalition of Labor Union Women. Christy, I know you've been around the labor movement some lately. Do you have any hopes for the labor movement?
Well, I would argue that the labor movement up until now has really lacked a feminist analysis. I think feminists and labor organizers have always worked together, but unfortunately a lot of the women's issues have been put on the back burner.
For the unions, it's pretty much a matter of equal pay. And since most unions have already accomplished that, they haven't gone on to any other questions about women's rights. For example, child care. It's a big issue for women and a big issue for labor union women, but we don't usually see that in union contracts, do we, Bonnie?
No, unfortunately. I think that there are things that have been introduced at the tables, at the bargaining tables, that have been presented to companies, but they're not interested. They're not interested in helping the worker in any way, shape, or form.
Yeah, child care has not been a big issue on union contracts, and it probably should have been if they were paying attention to the women. The truth is, most union officers are men.
That's right.
And
not in my local, but
not in your local, or
no,
most of them women.
Well, the president is a male. All vice president, executive vice president, treasurer, and secretary are all female.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah, poor Brett, but that's all right. He's all right.
My union has the financial secretary is a woman, and she is flat terrific. She's the most widely respected person in the union, I think. People just absolutely love Dale Johns. If you're listening, Dale, this is me sucking up to you.
Don't cut his budget.
She is absolutely wonderful. But anyway, Coalition of Labor Union Women should be able to do a lot of stuff, and I'm hoping that Christie's work with the women's movement in general will hook up with the labor movement and be able to make some gains. Now, I think one reason that women are excited is because they have hopes for the 2014 election. Is that not true, Christy?
Definitely. We've seen, with Wendy Davis running for governor and Leticia Van de Putte running for lieutenant governor, we have a lot of excitement in the women's movement about getting women into office and having them represent our own interests, because obviously for the past however many years we've had Rick Perry in office. So that's been terrible for the women's rights movement. That's been terrible for reproductive rights in the state of Texas. So we're excited about getting new faces in there and new faces that are going to represent our interests. Rick
Perry's whole political career is based on his hair. He has really good hair, and it's been noted over and over again that's how he got to be governor, and that's how he got to be agricultural commissioner. That's how he's managed to stay in as the longest-serving governor. And most of these women have better hair than Rick Perry.
That's right.
When you think about it, Leticia Van de Putte and Wendy Davis certainly have better hair than Rick Perry, and so I think that bodes very, very badly for the Republican Party, because the Democrats are going to be running some very good people with really good hair.
That's right. That's right.
And
fancy hair.
And so you think that's going to energize women? You think we're going to see a bigger turnout of voters in Texas?
Definitely. I think Texas is not nearly as red as people think it is. Texas is not nearly as conservative as people think it is. Unfortunately, we just haven't had good turnout among young people, especially among young women.
They just say this is not a Republican voting state, this is a not voting state.
Exactly.
We have the lowest turnout in the United States, I believe. The lowest turnout in the United States, and that's exactly what the reactionaries want. If the workers don't speak up for themselves, then they're going to get shafted.
The shaft.
And so up till now, the workers haven't been standing up for themselves, and they haven't been turning out. But 85% of the people that anywhere are workers. They work for a paycheck, and it's probably a lot more than 85%. But conservatively speaking, it's 85%. So they should run every election, and they don't. So, and I think a lot of that's on women. What's women's election turnout been like, Chris? Do you have any feeling for whether or not women have been voting in Texas?
I think it usually sticks around 60%.
60%? Well, that's a lot more than the men vote, and not as much, I think, as old people vote. Old people are pretty strong voters, and they generally vote Republican.
Which is not a good thing.
It's not a good thing for old people, because the Republican Party has been leading the charge to take away retirement benefits, pensions, and stuff like that.
People.
Yeah. In fact, just read the other day that thousands of Medicare beneficiaries from across the country are losing access to their Medicare Part A skilled nursing care because of something the hospitals are doing. They're keeping them under observation and taking away their right to get Medicare Part A. We'll be right back after this break. We're on with the Workers' Beat, Bonnie Mathias and Gene Lantz, and our guest, Christy Medrano. The number here, if you want to be counted, if you want to have your opinion registered, the number is 972-647-1893. And this station really, really likes it when you call. 972-647-1893. Now, Christy Medrano, we were talking about the upcoming elections, and you were saying that you expect a big women's turnout, a tide that I hope is going to change things in Texas. Is that true?
Yes, we're certainly hoping for it. I remember in the 2012 elections, I would be out with my organization on campus, and I would be out with the College Democrats on campus, and we would be registering people to vote. And what I noticed is that there was such a lack of enthusiasm for being able to participate in voting.
On campus?
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, there are other roadblocks to being able to vote, like the election, what are expected to be the polling places for the 2014 elections in Denton are expected to be out of the way, no bus routes towards there. They're not on campus. We don't have polling places on campus.
Wow.
So how are people supposed to vote if people aren't facilitating these choices for them?
They also make it harder to vote because you can't use your student ID to identify yourself at the polls.
Right.
And so consequently, you almost have to go home if you live on campus, but you come from Lubbock, you have to go back to Lubbock to vote because you have to show your driver's license, which has got that Lubbock address on it, that it goes with your voter registration card. If you registered to vote in Arlington and you don't have a driver's license that says you're in Arlington, that you live in Arlington, then they're going to stop you from voting, or they're going to make you vote a challenge vote at the very least. So students that are living on campus and their ID and stuff is back home, they should vote by mail. Vote by mail, and this is the day, brothers and sisters, to start your campaign to vote by mail, because the last legislature made it possible for you to register only once. You just have to you have to get one application, and then you can vote by mail. So you get those applications from your local elections commission or online from the Secretary of State. So Google Secretary of State and look for an application to vote by mail. And you only have to file one, and it will cover all the elections for 2014. That's the primary for the local elections, and then the runoff for the local elections, the primary for the November elections, and then the general election, and then the runoff. All of the elections that you're going to face in 2014, you'll get a ballot to vote by mail if you register now. Go ahead and contact the Secretary of State's office. This is for students who are living somewhere where their photo ID says they live somewhere else. They are allowed to vote by mail. If they're not going to be in their home area during the election period, then they can vote by mail. So they can go ahead and get an application to vote by mail, and they should do that now. Do it as fast as possible. Google Secretary of State's office. I don't have it here with me, but Google the Secretary of State's office. All of this information is on one of my websites, which is TexasRetiredAmericans.org. There's a Voting in Texas section that gives all the links, as to how you can do all this stuff. But that would help some if the students, the progressive students who want to be sure that they're going to be able to vote, and they don't live in the same, and they don't live at home. In other words, they're living on campus. They need to make an application to vote by mail, which is, you can do that in Texas, and you can get around all the voter suppression, all the attempts to get rid of your right to vote in Texas. Now, we've got two big candidates that are women that are running, lieutenant governor and governor, that Christy Medrano told us about a while ago. Are there other women candidates to keep our eyes on during this local elections or during the upcoming elections in the fall?
Not necessarily. We don't have fresh faces like we do in Leticia Van Pute and Wendy Davis. They've been working within the state for years now. They've always...
Talk directly in the microphone.
They've always been in the background, but now that we have these two women candidates in the forefront, all we've seen up until now is a whole lot of old white men running for office. And now that we have these women coming in and saying, you know, we're going to run and we're going to be the face of Texas, it's going to encourage other women to run for office.
Christy Lara here in Dallas ran for school board, and I thought that was an exciting race. She got about a third of the votes. It was pretty good because she didn't have any money. Yeah. But that was pretty good. And so you think other women will come forward and get into politics?
Oh, definitely. There's this quote that says, you can't be what you can't see. And up until now, we haven't seen a whole lot of women running for office. We haven't seen a whole lot of women in power. And if they are in power, they aren't necessarily respected. So I think Leticia Van de Putte and Wendy Davis coming into office, it is going to be a huge deal for the women's rights movement in Texas.
Let's talk specifically about the Latina vote. The women Latinas. Worst voters in Texas as far as in the past. And then generally speaking, every year they say, well, the demographics show that there are so many Spanish-speaking people, and they can vote in Spanish. There's so many Spanish people that they're going to control the election process, and then every year afterwards they say, well, they didn't turn out. What's going to happen this year in 2014, do you think, Christy Medrano?
I'm hoping for definitely much more turnout. I think what we need is to continue the momentum that we had over the summer with the women's rights movement going into the election, because unfortunately I feel like a lot of the revitalization has already worn off. You know, everybody asks, well, what do we do now? And a lot of the answers for that has come out of the election. And now what we do is we vote, and after that we'll figure out what to do next. But unfortunately, we're pushing boulders up hills right now. We're sweeping back the ocean with a broom, and that's how women feel in Texas, is that there's so much going on, there's so much that we have to do. Where do we start? We start with voting. At the very least, I believe that's what we can all do, is vote, at the very least.
You know, leadership is knowing what to do next. Christy Medrano, you know what to do next? You said start with voting. You know what to do next? So I want to know. I want to know if Christy Medrano is the kind of leader that we're looking for.
I think organizing is what we need to do next, because as soon as we get women that represent our own interests into office, we won't have to face things like Planned Parenthood's closing all across the state. We won't have to face things such as abortion services and clinics closing all across the state. And unfortunately for a lot of us, so much of our energy has been dedicated to reproductive rights in the state. And where are we at now? We're at clinics closing. We're at Planned Parenthood's closing all across the state. So as soon as we get out of the way, I think we can focus on a whole plethora of other issues. Unfortunately, this has taken up all of our time and energy up until now.
Bonnie, let me ask you, does Christy Medrano sound like somebody that people should be listening to?
Absolutely.
972-647-1893. If you have an opinion on that, if you'd like to hear more about what Christy Medrano thinks, this 19-year-old college student from UTA who's organized a feminist organization and has got some pretty strong opinions about what's going to be happening and what needs to be done. Sounds like she's got leadership, because leadership means you know what to do next. And that's pretty well it. Now let me ask you, Christy Medrano, are you willing to be out there? I mean, if somebody called and said, I want you at my organization, I want you to be on my radio program, I want you to go on this trip, you know, or this tour, or speak for this or that candidate or something like that, would you do those things?
Of course. I think not enough young women, and especially young women of color, have been speaking out for what they believe in and what they want to see in the state and all across this country. So I'll be willing to do anything for the movement. This
was not staged. I just made that up. And I got the answer that I wanted to hear. Was it the answer you wanted to hear? If it is, call us at 972-647-1893. Or if it's not the answer you want to hear, call us at 972-647-1893. Cooper Caraway, the youth director, is still here, too. We just don't have headphones for him. So you can call for Christy Medrano or Cooper Caraway, 972-647-1893. The next big question, we've established that Bonnie thinks you make a good leader. We have established, because of the responses you've already given us, that you do know what to do and that you're willing to stand up and be counted. Now the question is, how do people get a hold of you?
Oh, yes. Well, our organization's email is fmladenton@gmail.com, and A phone number in which you can reach me is 903-851-2507. I'm certainly willing to organize with other people that would like to organize with the young feminist movement. This is what we're all about, is organizing and getting together and working together, because that's what we need in the state right now. Because if we don't work together, we're going to get the same results, and those results haven't been good for women, they haven't been good for working people.
I was talking about vote by mail a while ago, and it occurred to me that the problem about the youth vote not being very good in Texas is that they don't have vote by phone. If they had vote by phone, I'll bet we'd get a lot more youth vote.
Smartphones and, yeah.
So we should go to the legislature and say we want vote by phone.
Listen, we barely got a vote now.
We barely have any.
We barely have any vote as it stands. I mean,
they're working on voter suppression.
Yeah, they have worked very hard on making sure less and less people vote.
972-647-1893 if you have an opinion on some of these things. I noticed you used the word feminist a while ago. They started calling it women's power or something like that instead of feminism in the older days. So I want to know how your word choice went. How did you decide to call your movement what it's called?
The feminist movement?
Uh-huh.
Well, the thing about the feminist movement is that we call it the feminist movement to identify the form of oppression in which we face, which is misogyny. If we called it the humanist movement, then I feel like we'd be sitting around wondering, well, where's all this oppression from? Where are all these problems coming from? Right now it's coming from misogyny. So to counter that, we call it the feminist movement.
That's men oppressing women.
Yes.
And you think this is pretty rampant?
Oh, definitely. Certainly.
And definitely in politics. What kind of things have, what evidence is there? What kind of things have happened, for example, in the last couple of legislatures that made it look like the men are simply out to get women?
Oh, dear. Well, for one, there aren't that many women in Congress to begin with. There, I believe it's around 20% women represented in the Congress right now.
Well, the state legislature cut children's health insurance drastically. That's a women's issue. Taking care of your children is a women's issue. They cut women's medical care drastically, shamefully, and they have made it almost impossible to get an abortion in Texas, which is not the only issue by any means, but it certainly shows a trend toward misogyny, wouldn't you say?
Oh, certainly. I believe that women cannot be liberated unless they have full bodily autonomy, and we've seen a complete regression of that bodily autonomy in Texas. Roe versus Wade was passed decades ago, and yet we're still fighting.
Came out of Dallas.
We're still fighting to keep the same rights that Roe v. Wade gave us. We are not progressing; we are regressing. We're
getting worse and worse, and you're saying that women aren't going to take it.
I don't think they are. I think this is a vital moment. I think this is a pivotal moment in the women's rights movement, especially in Texas, with what we've seen over the past summer.
The main thing that state governments do, is education. The biggest part of their budget goes to education. That's a women's issue, is it not?
Absolutely. Certainly, because where there are children, there are women, and the economic status and societal status of women will determine the economic and societal status of children. You don't have opportunities for children unless their mothers have those opportunities as well.
If I had a group of women somewhere that wanted a speaker, would you do it?
Of course, definitely.
Tell us again how to get in touch.
You can contact the Feminist Majority Leadership Alliance at fmladenton@gmail.com, and you can contact me personally at 903-851-2507.
FMLA, you're saying?
Yes.
That's Foxtrot, Mother Lima Alpha. The FMLA, Feminist Majority
Leadership Alliance.
Okay. And some of us old anti-war people are going to remember this very well, because the FMLA was the government organization in El Salvador when we were fighting against the wars in El Salvador. And I have a notion you knew that when you picked the name, Feminist Majority Leadership Association, right?
I haven't picked it, but I've heard that acronym before, yes.
Well, Family Medical Leave Act, that's another one.
Okay.
But, you know.
Let's see if we can take this caller. Shannon's back on? Oh, line one? Okay, Randy's on. Good morning, Randy. Thanks for waiting. KNON's glad to hear from you.
Good morning, you guys. I'll be quick with my 3 questions to the young lady.
Shoot.
First question is, what do you think about putting money in the banking industry that we know is not treating our communities right? The second question is, What do you think about buying products from a company that you know and your friends know that are not treating their employees or have treating their employees right or have their businesses oversee? And the last question is, what do you think about the right of the man who is involved in a relationship with a woman who becomes pregnant? What do you think of that man's right, who now is part of the baby inside of the woman, his right to have that child born and he raised the child? That's my 3 questions.
Okay, start with the last one. That's
Yes. I'll go ahead and start with the last one because my work has almost completely been in reproductive justice for women, especially in the state of Texas. I'll start with the last one because we get this question a lot whenever we do activism. My organization does activism for reproductive rights and abortion rights. I would say that ideally the man would be involved in the decision for the woman whether or not she's going to keep the child. However, I do believe that legally speaking, the only viable option is to keep the option 100% with the woman, because we do not want to regress to laws that say that a woman can only get an abortion with a man's consent. That would be a complete disaster for women in domestic violence situations. It would be a complete disaster for women that are economically unstable, and if the man has complete control over her body, then ultimately he has control over her economic status, because whenever you have a child, obviously you have to invest money and time to raising it. And even if the man wants to keep it, historically speaking, and even now speaking, we've always seen that it's in traditional relationships that it's the man that goes out and work, and it's the woman that that stays home and takes care of the child.
Yeah, if men could get pregnant, abortion would be, you could get an abortion on every corner. Now, the other question he asked had to do with, should women use their economic power to achieve their goals?
I think it's a start. I think where we are right now, starting there, it's not a bad idea, but I'd never want that to be the end-all, be-all, because ultimately that would be a movement that excludes poor women, and poor women are women that need feminism the most.
I don't want to cut you off, but Shannon's been waiting. Can we get Shannon on, line 2?
Yes, I'm on. Do you hear me?
Yeah, I hear you good.
Okay, great. I had a couple questions for Christy, or Ms. Medrano.
Hello.
Hi. One question I have is this is more like a feminist question, and I guess modern feminist, because you're young. Is it possible to be a feminist and to be pro-life? Is that how does that?
Good question. We're going to let Christy answer it, but she's going to have to hurry because we're down to less than 1 minute. Go ahead, Christy.
Okay.
Personally speaking, the only feminists that I've interacted with are pro-choice feminists. I think with pro-life feminists, we need to be working together on other issues that we agree on, such as equal pay, such as women's rights in the workplace and stuff like that. So I think it's exactly child care, maternity leave. There's so many different women's issues that if we disagree on one, then we need to be working together on another.
All right. That's pretty much all the time we have. Bonnie, you got any last words?
There is a pet adoption event at the corner of Lemon and Inwood. Just stop by and see if your new forever friend is there.
This is Gene Lantz. We'll be back next week. Thanks.
KNON 89.3 FM in Dallas and Fort Worth, the voice of the people.
Business owners, tell KNON's listeners about your business. You can put your business or event on KNON. KNON currently has space available to run announcements for you. Tell KNON's listeners about your goods, services, nightclub, concert, or event. Help keep the voice of the people on the air while putting your information on the air. KNON's been named the #1 radio station in Dallas by both the Dallas Observer and D Magazine. Put your business with Dallas's #1 station. Call now for more information at 214-828-9500, extension 227, or extension 233. For more information, go to KNON.org and click on the Run Spots on KNON page. It's a great way for your business to support community radio while letting more people know about you.